Welcome to our webinar today. We're super excited to talk to you guys about two topics that we love, Agentforce and Data Cloud, in a very no-nonsense way. So I'll kick things off with intros and then pass it over to Heather and Austin as well. So I'm Lauren Noonan. I lead the Growth and Alliances team here at Sercante. I've been working with Salesforce for over a decade and have been able to work with some of the new products as they've launched. I'm based just north of Boston, Mass. Heather, I'll pass it to you.
Okay, I'll go next. Okay, so hey everyone, I'm excited to be here. My name is Heather Rinke. I'm Salesforce Product Director at Sercante, and I focus on our Sales Cloud, Service Cloud side, as well as Agentforce. I've been working with Salesforce for about 13, 14 years now, both on the customer side and before becoming a partner. I've been fortunate enough to be working alongside Salesforce and our team with Agentforce from when it was launched, being involved in early implementations across business functions, helping our clients in sales, marketing, and customer success. And I'll pass to Austin.
Sure. Thanks.
Oh, and I'm based in Toronto. Sorry.
Excellent. I'm Austin. I'm the Data Cloud Product Director for Sercante. So my work sees me working in very complex environments with lots of multi-cloud considerations, all of which touching the Data Cloud product. I've been working inside of the Data Cloud product as well as the personalization offerings, starting in Marketing Cloud personalization for about 5 years now. And prior to that, I have over a decade of just enterprise cloud software solution architecture and engineering experience. And I'm based in Bloomington, Indiana.
Awesome. So today's agenda, I'll kick us off with just some latest market trends that we're seeing. We have a really fun Mythbusters section where we'll debunk just some funny myths that we've encountered with these products over the years. And then we'll walk you through our approach and how we help our customers build out their unique roadmaps and use cases for Agentforce and Data Cloud, and how we've adopted it internally from a methodology perspective as well. And then we have some resources at the end for you all. So I think unless you've been living under a rock, we've all been talking so much about AI, either in our personal lives and our professional lives. I've used it to redesign the side of my house to figure out where should I put my outdoor shower and how should I have the pavers. So I think there's just so many different ways that AI is being utilized, both personally and professionally, and it's really changing how we engage and think about the role that technology plays. It has definitely been a bit of a balancing act in really understanding and being able to see through what is really real, what will add value for me, for my business, for my area of the business, and just being able to really quickly cut through some of the noise and some of the hype to understand how it can really help. In addition to AI, we're also in this crazy era where there have been an explosion of technology over the last 2 decades. And we bring that up because it's not the era where we can copy what another company is doing or copy what the company was at the last place that we worked and implement that in our new place, because the tech stacks are so unique at each company, and really taking the data situation, the processes across the organization into consideration when thinking about answering the question of how could AI add value for me on a day-to-day basis, and how could AI add value to my organization on a day-to-day basis. So this has definitely added some complexity and made it a little bit more interesting to think through what those AI use cases could be. And there's so many players. So, there's the massive incumbents, there's the Salesforces of the world, and really understanding how are they innovating? Are they even innovating? Because believe it or not, there are some companies out there that are late to the game thinking about how to leverage AI and embed AI capabilities into the legacy technology. There's the former point solution. So that map that I had showed on the prior screen, a lot of those companies that came up through the world as being able to solve a problem are now trying to think about, how do I expand? How do I remain relevant? And that's also causing a little bit of noise because there's more and more overlap in capabilities across technologies than we've ever seen before. And then there's the new companies. So there's a whole wave of new AI companies, and they're trying to, have their own horse in the race and gain market share and TAM. And so trying to understand, who's really a winner in this space, who is ahead of the pack, and how do you discern between, what is really real and would add value to your organization or not. So I say all that because it's harder than ever to figure out, where do you start with AI? How do you leverage some of the AI capabilities of Salesforce? And so some of the questions that you'll see us come back to through this webinar, and we hope that you'll take away, is really looking through the lens of a couple key filters on a daily basis as you're thinking about your own engagement and relationship with AI. So what is really real? Are there actual use cases? Can you talk to customers? Are there success stories? What's going to drive impact? And what drives an impact for another company may not be the same thing that will drive the same impact for your organization. So really thinking through the lens of, what are the challenges in my world today? And how painful are those challenges? And then outlining what needs my time now. I think what's really amazing about this new AI era is the time savings that it can unlock for every one of us. There's so much manual stuff that we all do every day. And if you just make a list of all the things that take time and manual effort, you'd be amazed, just to kind of see that breakdown and the breakdown of time on a daily basis. All of those things that you list out are ripe for potential leverage of AI. And I think the last question is the most interesting one, because anytime there's new change and new technology, we're human. There's an inherent feeling of fear of, what does this mean for me? What does this mean for my job? Is AI taking over for my role? Is it here to replace me? And so we really try to encourage the reframe of what more could I do? What new value add things could this unlock time for me to focus on? And how can I show up for my organization in the best way, representing all the things that AI could bring? So there's more framing of just understanding, how do you prioritize what's important today versus what you should focus on next. And from a technology perspective, there's so much that we're asking our technology to do every day. There's so much that we're asking our teams to do every day. So we end up having this conversation when we're stuck in the now of oh my goodness, I just need our team to be able to do this one more thing, or I just need to fit this one more thing into my day. And we get so stuck in that transactional checking things off the to-do list that we really forget to think about my goodness, my plate's so full, my team's plate is so full. How can we actually ask our technology to do more things? And what could those list of capabilities be that we could then move off of the human plate onto the technology plate? And so you'll hear from Heather and Austin about really the approach that we've taken to really identifying what those capabilities are that are ripe for tech to own. But just wanted to kind of give you this theme of tech's not here to replace all of us as humans. Tech is definitely here to work alongside us. And how we think about data and data cloud and AI and Agentforce is through this lens of, how can we ask more of our technology so that we can ask more innovative, strategic thinking from our humans and our people and our teams. There's been quite an evolution. We've all lived it on a day-to-day basis, so I won't belabor the point, but it has evolved at a pace that none of us have seen. And I joke, like last year I was on maternity leave for just 4.5 months. And I came back. It was the first day of Dreamforce. I landed in San Francisco and I saw Agentforce everywhere. And I was like, what the heck is this thing? What is Agentforce? It wasn't even a concept. It wasn't even a word that had been, talked in my presence before I went out on leave. So that pace is only going to continue. Its rapid exploration of what AI and technology could do next. If you look at these three waves, you can see that the space of time between each one of these new eras and these new waves is getting shorter and shorter and shorter, and that's probably only going to continue. So the TLDR, I don't say all these things because I want you guys to feel overwhelmed and like, oh my goodness, where do I start? There's so many things, there's so many complexities. We say all that because there's a methodology to kind of work through and identify what makes the most sense for you and your organization in a way that can be done in just a couple short weeks. And the biggest takeaway that I hope that we can impart on everybody is it's not the time to copy what a peer is doing. It's not the time to copy what a competitor is doing. This is really the time to think about, what are your unique organizational pain points? What are the technologies that you've already invested in? What are the data elements that you already have that you maybe aren't utilizing to the fullest extent? And how can we use those three things to overlay your business processes, unlock productivity, and really understand what that first wave of use cases makes sense for Data Cloud and Agentforce in your organization. Because, like I had covered, your tech stack is very different than your competitors. Your processes are different. Your data quality is different. So just trying to copy another point of view or another use case from another organization is not guaranteed to give you the same output. So with all that in mind, we thought we'd start with just some myth busting. So I'll pass it over to Heather to walk us through a couple myths that we've heard, because there have been so many misconceptions and kind of funnies that we've encountered as these new products have launched.
Yeah, thanks, Lauren. Okay, so the first myth, if I can, is it coming? Okay, here we go. I want an agent. So this has come up often where we've talking to companies, talking to people that, I mean, let's face it, AI and Agentforce have been like out there, we've been hearing about it for a while. Lauren mentioned the idea that the fact that she hadn't heard of it for like leading up to Dreamforce and came back, and all of a sudden now it's everywhere, it's painted everywhere. I'm pretty sure that it's actually a year ago today that Salesforce's earnings call happened, and Agentforce was first mentioned in the earnings call, and then all of a sudden it was just this explosion. So there's obviously a lot of talk since then, but it's generating excitement, and so people do, they hear it and they say, like, I want an agent. And you may have heard it as well. I mean, if you've heard it and you're listening and you're nodding your head, let us know in the chat. But when instead of saying we need an agent, it may not they may not know exactly what they want that agent to do. I mean, that's the question, right? Is understanding what it's going to do, how it's going to help the organization, or even do they need an agent, or is it really just an automation? Understanding exactly what's needed out of that agent and what problems they want to solve. That it contributes more to a vision. I want an agent isn't necessarily the vision that you wanna stick to. Instead, clarifying that why. And so, yeah, I mean, if you I guess the the bottom line is that it's, an agent is not specifically the vision for implementing Agentforce or AI. It's getting to having those conversations internally about what's the problem or the challenge that you need to solve, or who's going to see the impact of this, or where's it going to live, where do you want it to operate, and then when is it going to be needed. So having some of those conversations about exactly what that looks like and what it's going to solve is really where you get to your vision. And we have a poll. I'm going to point you to the poll, which I think you can get from your panel on the right-hand side. So we'd love to hear a little bit more about what you're thinking about when it comes to Agentforce. I meant to mention that before.
And while everybody is voting, I'll tell you a little bit of a funny story. So one of the very first calls that Heather and I had right after Agentforce was launched, and as you know, it was for service. We got on with the prospect and just asked, what's intriguing about Agentforce? And they're like, we're really interested in the service agents to do service things. You're like, okay. Well, let's talk a little bit more about what those things could be. And it was a funny conversation, but it was a really impactful conversation because we were able to get them to, understanding what the friction points were today across service, and it helped frame what that first service agent became.
Yeah, it's really typically like saying that you want an agent, or if it's coming up in that conversation in that context, typically it means like there's something driving it. Maybe it just hasn't been articulated yet. And that's where it's almost, instead of the vision, it's the prompt to start talking about the vision.
For sure.
And I'm just looking at the polls. Okay, so I'm seeing that a lot of people are, when we're asking about where you want your agent to, what do you want Agentforce to help with, a lot of people are saying lead qualification or all of the above, which is kind of cool. So if you're adding it in chat as well, what you're thinking of, we'd love to hear it. And Austin, I'll pass to you.
Sure thing, thanks. We also have a poll around your goals with the Data Cloud platform, and kind of going along with the same theme of myths and things that we hear often in our conversations with clients and customers. We hear this a lot too as it relates to Data Cloud, and we have been hearing this for a while. I'm sure that probably everyone in the call has heard this, or maybe even thought this, but I want a unified profile. This, I think, this ends up meaning different things to different people. And so when I hear I want a unified profile, we just really need to march down the road toward, establishing that unified profile, ingesting our data from different data sources so we can get our unified profile. I'm quick to try to dive into that in discovery to understand what exactly they hope to see at the end of this project, where we're trying to build a unified profile. So if you want to go to the next slide. Thank you. Much along the same lines as Heather just mentioned with the agent, a unified profile is not a vision for Data Cloud in and of itself. It's vague. It's just not enough. It's not specific enough. The answer is in really with any use case. I think with technology, we need to do like rationalization around what it is we're trying to build. We're investing in technology, and we want to build the thing that's going to see us realizing a return on that investment. And so the question we have to ask is, who in the organization is going to benefit from this unified profile? And then what's it going to be used for? And so as we start to kind of dig into those questions and get more and more granular around, what do we mean by unified profile? Most of the time, what I see is what is meant by that is a dashboard view of all the data we have about a specific person. So that of course means omni-channel data. It could be surfacing up like web engagement data, like what products have they looked at on my e-commerce site, but in a sales view. So we see like a kind of omni-channel visualization, a dashboard view of that unified profile. That is already much more specific than saying I want a unified profile, because oftentimes on the data side, what we mean is just the unified record inside of Data Cloud, which can be used to power all kinds of use cases, segmentation for marketing use cases, obviously to power agents, and any sort of like AI forward use case. The unified profile, when thinking about it specifically from that data consolidation, is like a more fundamental underlying goal to support lots and lots of different use cases. And that's when you can start to parse out, what can we accomplish in the sales channel? What can we accomplish in the marketing channel? What teams can benefit from these sort of like well articulated goals across the organization? And I think we can, yes. And then the next myth, and it kind of like going down the road with that same line of thinking. So as we start to parse out those different use cases, we start to see like we don't need all of the data into Data Cloud in a massive implementation to accomplish one of them, right? It's like you can rationalize the ingestion of data on a use case by use case basis. So when you say, I want an advanced segment of unified profiles, unified individuals, taking into account web engagement data on our e-commerce website, along with their email engagement data, two different channels. And now we have a better segment of people that we can then go and market to. One discrete use case with a couple data sources. And that's not a very big lift from a technical perspective, but it has the potential to help the organization realize a ton of value. So that's the type of use case ideation and rationalization that needs to kind of happen during these projects. And oftentimes what that results in on the front end is a long backlog of use cases that you then map data sources to, and then start to build prioritization around. So ultimately, like, it's going to be different for every organization, but we may find that like the marketing goals are more important right now. So we want to build 3 segments, and we need these, 2 or 3 data sources to do that. And that becomes phase 1. But you have the back catalog, so you kind of know as an architecture group, ultimately we're going to need all these data sources, and we're going to need to keep that in mind. But you can realize value much more quickly with this sort of phased approach to implementing Data Cloud, and it does not require a massive implementation. This holds true for all the agent use cases as well. Like you can build an agent with a very minimal Data Cloud footprint and a very lightweight initial implementation.
Yeah, and honestly, this is the one that like grinds my gears the most of all of the myths, because like Austin, Heather, and I have heard it so many times. Like, well, an existing client or a prospect will reach out and call us and say like, "Gosh, Agentforce sounds so interesting, and I really have a couple of use cases already in mind to get started, but I feel like I can't because I have to go through a Data Cloud implementation first." It's like, hold on, no, you don't, promise. So taking that step back. But in those cases, had they not called and shared that concern, we would have had no insight into what that blocker was. So we vehemently believe in the busting of this myth, because it does not have to be a blocker for Marketing Cloud on Core or Agentforce, or even Data Cloud itself. You don't have to do, to Austin's point, a massive Data Cloud implementation where you bring in every data source within your organization to power campaigns or sales insights. You can start small and build from there. And the last one.
All right. Myth number 4, implementing Agentforce and Data Cloud is going to fix all of our problems. I know it's really nice to think that, but it's just not gonna happen. I hate to break it, but without having like the foundation of Agentforce and Data Cloud is going to be like your processes, having an agent that's going to actually work within your business process and achieve your goals. It's going to work with your data, the data you have. And if you don't have clear business processes, and if you don't have reliable data, and without a strategy around your tech stack, it's not gonna, like, just adding more technology is not gonna solve the problem. And if anything, it's probably gonna highlight where there are challenges. So there's definitely things that it's going to address. Like, don't get me wrong, implementing these things are gonna you're gonna or will provide benefits down the road if it, like, once implemented, but there's groundwork that has to be put into place, and you need to make sure that there's that you have those pieces in place, and you have that alignment, you have that vision, which we're going to talk about, that are really going to help you see success with this.
Yeah, and to that point, like getting into, the value and the approach and all the things that Heather just said, there may be some blockers to some of the AI and data use cases, but that's okay. What's really important is that we know what they are. We can understand the size of the blocker, what it's going to take, to mitigate it, and work through those things in parallel. Not every use case is going to have a blocker today. So knowing which ones do and don't, you'll see in the methodology, really help guide and advise the sequencing that makes the most sense for your organization. So all those things that we've been talking about, it is important that we're not just copying what other companies are doing, and we're really tailoring to each organization to really understand what the technology is, the processes, how the different data sources, the structure of the data, the quality of the data, and knowing all of those things help to guide towards that human touch and alignment with AI. So I've talked a lot about the approach, so let me just kind of unveil it. It's quite simple when you get down to it. So we do start with the vision, and that's really important to understand. What are the challenges today in your organization? What's the pain factor of those? Is it a high pain? Is it low? And understanding the impact. So if we could improve this pain point, what could that unlock for the organization? Who would benefit, and why is that important? So knowing that vision helps to identify those business value capabilities. We'll walk you through how to build a roadmap, but we do start in that first phase with somewhere around 3 use cases. And we tie those use cases to your organization. So you can't forget about the people in this new AI era. So getting them excited, on board, understanding the value, creates that excitement internally and makes it a lot easier to get your team and the organization on board with subsequent AI use cases in the future. And like I had said, every organization is so different. So knowing what those dependencies are is vital. So if there is a use case that you want to launch around an automated BDR function, knowing where the data elements are that agentic BDR would need access to, knowing whether or not they're currently integrated into your technology stack, and understanding the quality of that data are all some potential dependencies that you would need to think through prior to launch. Heather, I'll pass it to you.
All right. Okay. So unpacking what Lauren had mentioned just a moment ago with respect to vision, that's the first step. So we're going to, this is what our recommendation is to start documenting this. Grab a spreadsheet, start throwing this into place. That way you can have something that you're all speaking to and working from. Looking at all those pain points and challenges and roadblocks that you might be seeing in your processes, big or small. This is a great exercise to just start thinking about all those potential areas of friction in your organization. And then thinking about, wouldn't it be great if we did this thing, it would unblock this pain point, or it would remove this pain point, and start thinking about all of those opportunities or use cases that could address your pain points and your challenges. Not excuse me, documenting those, and who is going to benefit from those use cases and those opportunities, if you actually see them realized and implement them. As Lauren mentioned, you may see some things bubble up as far as ones you want to dig into more, but this is a great way to be able to actually just throw all the ideas down and get alignment across your organization. And on the next slide, we're talking about business value. So this is where you're taking some of the exercise in the vision step. You're looking at those a little bit more and evaluating what is the business value for each of them. Um, how would the business be impacted if we were to actually implement this specific use case or this capability? And this is where having that spreadsheet in place is really a value, because then you can actually, when you have all of those opportunities listed, throw a column on there and start and adding a measure of impact to each one. And we've got some t-shirt size examples here to give you a guide. So when you want to think about like high value to your business, you're thinking about things that are, like large data silos that you're now exposing and giving access to. Anything that's driving a lot of revenue, that would be a high impact. Medium, you're thinking of things that are maybe not quite so high, mild to medium impact to your revenue. Maybe help streamline your processes across departments or across the organization, or contributing to some organization-wide goals in some other way. And then low, you're thinking about quick wins that might impact a single team, or improving productivity in some other way. And I'll pass to Austin now, who's going to talk about people.
I'll cover this one.
Okay.
So like I had said, the people, it is really vital because we are all human. We are all a little bit, or at least most of us are a little bit averse to change initially. And AI is quite a big change over the last, year and a half. And so really understanding who will be impacted by the different capabilities that you outlined in your plan, how impacted they'll be, and really aligning the value that they'll realize through the implementation of these changes. So we do encourage you to think about the impact to the people in a very similar way to how Heather just walked you through with business value. So t-shirt sizing, high, medium, and low really help you to see visually the impact to the people across the organization. So something that's high impact typically includes multiple teams across the organization. And it could include a complete overhaul of a large complex process, or the updating of a couple smaller processes, and maybe even some redesign of a job description or role definition. Medium will impact some roles across the organization. It might change a couple processes, and roles may change slightly. And then low is typically impacting a really small cohort of people, maybe some minor tweaks to process changes, and no role changes would be necessary. So really aligning the value to that would be thinking through things like eliminating bottlenecks, streamlining some processes, removing some, manual or busy work, and improving the siloed nature of some knowledge across the organization. And then we get to all of these different levers to really understand, how do you plot all of the capabilities that you've documented, right? So we've gone through and we've made a list of your current state pain points. We've reframed those as business opportunities. we have kind of scaled and graded high, medium, and low for business value, people impact. And the next one is looking at level of effort to implement. So putting them, in just a grid like this, and color coding level of effort from green being low and red being high, help you to visually see all of the different capabilities that you've identified. And it helps to identify where to start with first, which we'll share a little bit more information about. And then Austin, I'll pass you to wrap us up with dependencies.
Yep, sure thing. So obviously there are going to be a lot of dependencies for any sort of AI or data cloud implementation, and they can fall into one of these three categories. There's going to be technological dependencies, dependencies on data, and then people and process. So in the technology category, we're thinking like inventorying our systems that'll be ultimately connected to data cloud, and that will ultimately be surfaced up into to inform these agents that we'll be building. So what technologies do we already have, and are there any gaps in the technology that we would actually need to realize the use case that we've described? And then what will it take to close those technology gaps? Maybe we need to consolidate upstream systems, maybe do like application rationalization to figure out if there's redundancy across our upstream systems. And maybe we have redundancy in upstream systems such that we have to kind of figure out there's multiple paths forward for data ingestion. So we have to do a little bit of work to figure out like which dependency do we want to rely on? What do we want to lean into as technology that'll become part of our software stack? And then the data, like what data is actually required. That goes kind of hand in hand with technology. Of course, the data is going to reside in technology systems, data systems. But with thinking use case like centrically, what specific data objects from where will we need to actually realize the use case? Do we have data sources that are not integrated yet? And do we have any data quality issues? Those are all things that are important dependencies. And then probably what I would consider to be, maybe from my experience, the most important would be this people and process dependency, because this kind of hints at like, do we have internal alignment? Do we have a shared vision of where we're heading as an organization? Do we have internal politics that might get in the way? These are all like very real dependencies that can hinder an implementation, such that it's not easy to realize value from doing the implementation. You may not see a success because of them. So it's important to understand like what teams and roles are going to be impacted by AI use cases and implementing these technologies, and also understand what amount of time will AI unlock for these teams. So like, how is it going to benefit them? How's it going to improve their day-to-day working life, and what can they focus on instead?
Nope. All right. So I think I lost my video, but we're going to talk next about measuring success. So this is the final piece of the puzzle of the overall process. So you've defined your use cases, you've defined those pain points, what they're going to address. You've looked at the value, and now you want to think about how you're going to measure success. And this is where you want to think about, 1 to 2 metrics for each of your use cases, and this is to help you unlock, how you're going to track success. So you want to be able to it helps you track success, but you also want to think about this now, because you want to make sure that, number one, you've got the pieces in place in order that you're actually going to be able to collect the data to be able to measure that metric. And it also is your reminder that if it is one of those use cases that you're going to move forward with this early in your roadmap, you want to make sure you have the benchmarks in place so that you can compare and take a look at that success down the road, and that you have the reporting in place in order to monitor. This is all important. The metrics are key on here because you do want to be able to tell the story that it was impactful, that it was successful. And it also helps to have the conversations when you're thinking about the next step in phase and, potentially the next phase in your roadmap for the next use case. And when you complete all of these steps and you have all of the information that is available to you, you can map it out into a matrix. And we've got this, I mean, if this brings back and all this data and brings back all these thoughts of prior movies of similar name, really this is going to help you to plot out your where these use cases are and help you to prioritize. So you see we've got some buckets here in the diagram that's shown here. This is where your use case is going to go is going to be based on the level of effort, the how much disruption it's going to be to your organization and the people impact, and then what that impact to the business is. So for quick wins, or what you see as early adopters, this is where you've got use cases that are going to be really high value, impactful to the organization with low effort. And they're not going to be super disruptive. So these would be your quick wins. Next, we'd have the mid-range, which would have a high value of impact or medium to high value, but not as much, not too much effort. So low to medium amount of effort. And then lastly, we have the late stage, I should say, which is a higher level of effort. Maybe some disruption and maybe more dependencies involved. So a lower level of business impact as well. So going through this exercise, you're going to highlight some of those things. Are going to just become more apparent to you, which are going to be the ones you're going to start first. And we recommend 2 to 3 quick wins. So the ones that kind of show up in that early adopters section as the ones you're going to start with. And on this slide, we've got sort of an example of a roadmap. And this is a typical roadmap that we're seeing as we're having conversations with clients. And so there's going to be some 3 distinct phases. So you have your foundation. This is where you're laying the groundwork. So you're looking at your key integrations. You're building your knowledge base. Maybe you're doing a little bit of task automation, and you're getting your reporting all into place. Then you might move into the elevate stage when you've completed your foundation. Elevating is when you're taking what's been built in foundation and you're expanding it. So you're maybe thinking about additional integrations. You're looking at potentially looking at enhancing automations or expanding them. Anything that you've done in that first phase. And then now maybe you're starting to think about propensity models and scoring. And then we move into Excel, where we're thinking about that propensity model and scoring a little bit more and a little bit deeper, bringing that tech stack together, consolidating it and connecting it, making sure everything's moving, data is moving in the way it should be. And then looking at those ongoing enhancements, optimizations, and focusing on reporting and insights to keep reiterating and expanding from there as new use cases come up.
And wrapping it all up, so we've kind of unpacked it for you guys step by step in here, but it really can start with something as simple as an Excel document, as Heather had outlined, where you and your organization just whiteboard and map out all of the different pain points today, really understanding and driving towards that cohesive vision statement, what those capabilities are, and then the rating of those. So based on level of effort, impact to the business, and impact to people will help you start prioritizing and building out that prioritization matrix that will inform the roadmap, the sequencing of the different phases. So which capabilities fall into which phase, and then wrapping it up with how you would ultimately measure success. But all in all, it's intended to be an iterative process. It's intended to get you started quickly with a couple use cases that don't have a ton of dependencies, that can add value to the organization, and then build and build and build from there. So we've given you some resources. These will be sent out, but feel free to scan the QR code here and on the next slide if you're so inclined. So Heather put together this blog post that gives you just a couple tips to get started with Agentforce. So have a read there. And then we're hosting an AI workshop, which is a much more robust version of what we walked you through today, on Thursday, September 30th from 2 to 3 p.m. Eastern. So again, this QR code will take you to the registration page there. That will give you access to a workbook where you're able to walk through each one of those steps that we talked through in a methodical way, to capture the opportunities for your organization. And would be remiss if we didn't use the opportunity to talk through two of the packages that we have had a lot of clients and prospects take us up on. So just trying to get started quickly with Agentforce. This could look like a single use case. It could be an internal employee facing use case, but just starting to get your organization warmed up to the value that Agentforce could bring in a manner that is not high cost. It doesn't take a long time to implement, and you would get a roadmap of where we would recommend that you focus your agentic journey next. And then we're calling this one Data Cloud in a Box, but it is a pre-packaged Data Cloud implementation that gets you up and running in a few short weeks for not a ton of financial investment. It helps you identify what the use cases are for Data Cloud for your organization, and then builds towards those and trains and enables your team to ensure proper adoption. But beyond that, if neither one of those make a ton of sense, there's more menu type options that we have. So if you're early in your journey, we could talk about training. We could talk about building out that roadmap in partnership with you. If you've already gone through the early stages and you're trying to figure out where to accelerate next, we could help build that solution for you. We also offer retainer support options. So buckets of hours we're able to work with alongside the Sercante team to accelerate your roadmap that you may have already designed. And then if you're like, I'm all in, my organization is all in, we know that we're going down this path, we need to go down this path quickly, we're here to do more of a transformation, we're here for that too. So any questions? It sounds like we may have some questions in the chat. So Christina, yes. So we have our first question is, what is the average cost to implement Data Cloud and Agentforce for the average organization? So Heather, Austin, do you guys want to help me answer this one?
So I think, yeah, it's good. There's like a big, it depends.
You're like, oh goodness, it depends.
I hate to say it. But there are a couple of things that I will say that that factor into cost that you want to consider. So there is going to be obviously your licensing, in order, if it's not already part of the products that you're invested in already. But then there's also the consumption as well. So that is both on the Agentforce side and the Data Cloud side. There are, and this is where having conversations with your AE about what your use cases are can help unlock, just getting an idea of what those costs are going to be before you jump in, so that you can. And that's probably a wise idea, even just at some point when you're pretty close to picking your use cases, when you're getting started, to think about that, because that is an impact, right? Understanding what that in addition to the actual time level of effort, is also like, what is the cost to deliver? And so those are some things to consider as well. I don't know, Austin, if you'd add anything more.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, just kind of piggybacking on that, some of those considerations would be, and I think the short answer on like what does it cost from an implementation perspective, if you're just on average, if you're just thinking about the implementation and not your additional like licensing costs, which you would work with Salesforce on, but it could be anywhere from like 25K to like $1 million. It just depends a lot on how many data sources, how many use cases. It can all be kind of can be very, very flexible and vary greatly between the types of organizations and the goals. And we've seen everything in between. And some of those considerations are like the number of data sources for sure. Like that's not the only one, but that's a really, really good starting point. Like what are our dependent systems? How many of them are there? How many of them have productized connectors? Because there's like I've lost track of the count. They release new ones every month, but there are hundreds of out-of-box connectors to upstream systems to ingest data into Data Cloud. If you're able to leverage those, the LOE to ingest is dramatically lower than if you have to solution around some on-prem or bespoke kind of system that we've never seen before and will never see again. But there's multiple ways to ingest data into Data Cloud. So that there's really no system that can't become part of the overall cloud solution architecture, but the cost is dramatically impacted by how much of the out-of-box functionality can be used in the solution architecture and how much has to be kind of like designed and customized to support the use cases and the goals.
Yeah. And I'm going to piggyback onto what you just said and just add that on even on the Agentforce side too. There's a lot of the out of the box capabilities. So some might be relatively, if there is one that's going to be a fit for a use case that you have, one of the out of the box features. And mind you, like they are updating, they're adding features and monthly. So they're putting a lot of investment into out of the box and standardized features. So there could be something that would be lower cost, even to implement out of the box or implement out of the box and customize slightly versus a completely bespoke solution. So all things to consider.
Awesome. And then we have another question. So what are some examples of use cases that you've seen hit the sweet spot between lower people impact and low medium impact to the business? That would be a great place to get started. I'm going to start answering this, and I'm going to start by saying what I had said, which is we don't want to be copying what everyone else is doing in this new era. We do want to be making sure that we're tailoring these use cases to where your company is at from a tech, process, data quality perspective. But we are definitely seeing a lot of customers start with internal facing use cases. So the point that I had made of like, there's just so much stuff that we all do on a day-to-day basis that's super duper manual. Like think about those things. So like if you're a marketer, are you rewriting your campaign brief from scratch each time? Are you trying to figure out who to segment every time? Are you like manually going through your reports to derive insights every time for each new campaign? If you're a seller, how much time are you spending in Salesforce trying to figure out who should I call today and what are my top leads and why are those leads? How am I even considering those leads top leads? Am I spending too much time responding to email inquiries? Am I trying to figure out like who in my territory is at risk for attrition? So like those types of activities are really ripe for potential AI. And then from a service perspective, just think about the types of trends that you're seeing in inbound inquiries and inbound calls. Are there trends there? Can you be more proactive in how you're communicating with your customers to prevent those inbound calls and inquiries from occurring in the first place? But Austin, Heather, I don't know if there's anything else that you would add.
Yeah, I would say that a dependency there, going back to one of the previous slides, is how the internal organization, like how the organization is already set up operationally. So if we have like a big data cloud implementation, we're bringing in a couple data sources, and there's like a clear, like there's the expectation that there's going to be a team around that organizationally that's going to kind of own that. That's going to that'll have multiple kind of that's kind of multifaceted. I'm getting kind of lost in my thought there, but let me back up a little bit. So I have seen where we have an organization where we have like a savvy data aware type of resource that is on the client side that comes in and conversations are smooth and they understand kind of the goals very well, and we can kind of march down the road quickly toward the goal. And then that there's a smooth handoff to that person and there's barely any people impact. Whereas in another organization with a completely new, like barely even understand, like never even heard of SQL before, doesn't even know really what's going on. Let's say it's the same exact implementation, all the same technologies involved, all the same goals. The people impact at that organization is going to be dramatic compared to the other organization. So what I'm saying is the internal structure and kind of people investment in the tool is a big dependency there.
Yeah, I don't know that I can add a lot more to what each of you said, but I would say that I'm kind of leaning on the same side of, customer face, or sorry, not customer facing, internal facing, when it comes to an agent, because there's a lot of like small, potentially repetitive tasks that could be unlocked there, in terms of just being able to get help with. I mean, Lauren, you gave some examples on things like helping to craft a campaign brief, but maybe it's even, helping a seller like craft an email that's more personalized, or even just thinking of customer service, even if it's not customers facing. We're talking things like, helping to summarize a case or helping to summarize like a message history to just get caught up. So there's a lot of small things that potentially are time. They take up a lot of time. That would be my recommendation to look at. But of course, it's going to depend on the exercise that you go through as far as, what are those quick wins. But those are the ones that I've seen.
Awesome. Well, I'm not seeing any additional questions that have been posted. So I wanted to just thank you all for joining us today, for sticking through the content, and hopefully you found it really helpful. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to any of us. So I will give you guys a little time back and enjoy the rest of your day.
Wait, Lauren, sorry, we do have a question that just came in.
A last minute question. Hold on. What success has Sercante seen with our AI chatbot? I wonder, are we talking about the one on our website?
I'm not sure.
I'm not sure which one we're talking about. I could say that we're using Agentforce internally in our Salesforce org. So I, as managing the alliance with Salesforce, I have to provide a lot of inputs and insights into accounts. So I ask that agent a lot of questions to summarize accounts and give me insight into open opportunities and the stage of those opportunities, and just kind of summarize the status of our pipeline. So that's just some ways that I'm personally using our AI agent internally.
Yeah, I mean, same along the same line. I use it also for just getting up to speed on specific accounts, and where I can plug in support, um, as well as the examples that Lauren had mentioned.
Well, hopefully that helped answer. All right. Any last questions?
Nope.
I'm not seeing any more pop in.
No, Christina's saying no.
All right.
Okay.
Well, have a great rest of your day, everybody. Thank you for joining us, and looking forward to catching you on the next one.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.